This is Mr. Elmhorst with the adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers review. So this is our unit review, getting ready for all integers summative. So just recall from our class, we have 1, 2, 3 integer rules that we follow. So when we're adding integers, if the integers have the same sign, for example, -5 plus -3, we're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. So 5 negatives and 3 negatives will give you 8 negatives. So rule 2, subtracting integers. So subtracting integers, the problem, we're going to switch the problem to an addition problem. And we're going to add the opposite of the second integer. So what does that look like? For example, if we had -5 minus -3, so we're going to switch this problem. So -5, take away 3 negatives. When you see double negatives, we're thinking more positives. If we're taking away negatives, we're getting more positive. So we're going to add the opposite. So we're just going to switch the problem to addition and then change the sign of the second integer. This is always when we see subtraction. So now we're ready to add these integers. So we're ready to combine them. So 5 negatives and 3 negatives, 3 positives. So we look at these signs, and if they are different signs, we're going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign of which one we have the most of. So 5 and 3, those are different signs. So we have 2 left over. 5 minus 3 is 2, and we have more negatives. So our answer is -2. And multiplying, dividing integers. For example, if we had 5 times -3, or -5 times -3. So if the signs are the same, our answer is positive. So if we see double negatives, we're thinking we're having more positives, or we're making positives. So 5 times 3 is 15, and double negatives, they're the same sign, so our answer is positive. And here, 5 times 3 is 15. They're different signs, so we're going to have negatives. Okay, and so I need to make a mark on the screen. Okay, check, we did that. Okay, so taking a look at the first one here, I'm actually going to just use a screen marker here. Okay, so add the following. So if we add the following, we're going to start at 0. So the first integer is going left 2 spaces, which is -2, -2. And then the second integer is going to the right, positive 5 spaces. So we're at -2. We're going to go over here, right, positive 5, and we're going to end up at positive 3. So it's a little messed up there. Okay, so -2 plus 5. And our adding rules, if we have different signs, we're going to subtract the numbers. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and you have more positives, so your answer is positive 3. So add the following. Well, adding just means put them together. So -4 and -1. So we're going to go on the number line, -4. And then it says also continue to go left, -1. -1. So if you have 4 negatives and 1 negative, they are the same sign, and we do add the numbers. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So our rule does prove to be true even when we use a number line. And we end up with -5. Now, if we have multiple integers, you got negatives and positives, and you have multiple ones of them, we're just going to go in order. So the first one says go -7. So we're going to put in -7. We got it. Then we turn around and then go in the positive direction. We go +6. And then we turn around and go in the negative direction. And then, so we're here at -1, and we go back -3. Okay, so we got -7, positive 6, and then negative 3. Where do you end up at? And that does make sense. If we put all of our negatives together, overall, we had 10 negatives and we had 6 positives. We have more negatives than positives. These are opposites. So 10 minus 6 is 4, and there are more negatives. So our answer is negative 4. And we're doing the same thing for the last one. Put your negatives together. So we can add the same sign. We can add the same sign integers. We can just add up the numbers. 4 plus 10, negative 10 plus negative 4. They're all the same thing. So we got negative 14. And we have 8 positives. So now we've got our 14 negatives, and now we're going to combine them with positives. They're different signs. So negative 14, and then positive 8. Because these are different, we are going to subtract these numbers. 14 minus 8 is going to give us 6. We have more negatives, so our answer is negative 6. And we bubble this in and make sure we're going to bubble in negative 6 on the left-hand side. Okay. So I think I need to exit out of this page marker. Okay. All right, so we got that done. So you take a look at our answers here. So the Nearpod is going to be available in the class. I'm just going to move on to the next one. So yes, we did that. Good. Okay, so now subtracting integers. So I'm going to follow our subtracting integers rule. So subtracting integers, we got to get in the habit of switching the problem to addition and switching the sign of the second integer. So whenever we see these double negatives, we need to think we are getting more positive. So what this is really saying is double negatives, we're actually adding 3. Double negatives means we're getting more positive. So we're taking away 10 negatives, which is adding 10 positives. If we only see one negative sign, subtraction sign, we're subtracting positives. So we are actually getting more negative. If you take away positives, we're getting more negatives. So we're going to add the opposite, add negatives. Same thing. We see the negative sign, it's just a subtraction. We don't see double signs. We're thinking we are getting more negatives. So taking away 14 is the same as getting 14 negatives. So now we have 13 and 3 positives. Now we follow our adding integer rules. 3 positives will cancel out 3 of the negatives with 0 pairs, and you're left with negative 10. These are different signs, negatives and positives, so we subtract the numbers. 13 minus 3 is 10, and you have more negatives, so your answer is negative 10. So now we've got taking away 10 negatives the same as adding 10. So they're the same sign. 20 plus 10 is going to give us 30. So here we got 30 negatives, and we're adding 20 negatives. These are the same sign now, so negatives and negatives go together. We're going to end up with negative 50. And same thing here, negative 44 and negative 14 all together. We look at the sign. Adding just means combine, but we look at these signs, negative and negative, they go together. So we put them all together, and we got 44 negatives and 14, so we negative 58. Now, for this problem, we've seen this before, but I'm still seeing students pick the first one here. This is a subtraction problem, so we need to rewrite it as an addition problem. What this is really saying is taking away 6 is the same as adding 6 negatives. So we take a look at our number line. Our first arrow is going to the left, negative 9. And then our second arrow is going to the right, positive 6. So we got negative 9 and positive 6. This is negative 9 and negative 6. So taking away, no, that's adding up here. So it's not going to be here. Negative 9, positive 6. Negative 9, positive 6. So our correct answer will be right here. These are backwards. Negative 6, positive 9. Negative 9, positive 3. No, that one doesn't even make sense. And same thing here. We got to make sure that we rewrite this. This is negative 5 minus 2. Negative 5, if you see one subtraction sign, we're thinking we're getting more negative. So negative 5 and negative 2. Well, here we got negative and positives. We're switching directions. Here we got negatives and positives switching directions. This is negative 5, negative 5. Here we have negative 5, negative 2. So our correct answer is going to be here. So we're just checking our answers here and put a check to move on, saying we got the answers. Okay, now looking at our multiplying integer rules. So multiplying integers, lock the bar and then reset this. Okay, so multiplying integers, if we're multiplying the same sign, we're thinking positives. So if we're seeing double negatives, we're thinking a positive answer. So negative times negative is positive. Negative divided by negative is positive. Over here, if there's different signs, we're thinking negative. So if we only see one negative here, then our answer is going to be negative. We only see one negative in this problem, our answer is going to be negative. So now let's multiply. This group here, whenever we see it, it's not going to say multiply, but these are groups. And you got 6 negative groups of negative 15, or 6 opposite groups. So we're going to have to do our multiplication process. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 1 plus 3 is going to give us 90. So number 1 is positive 90. And knowing our multiples of 6, 6 times 10 is 60, 6 times 11 is 66, 6 times 12 is 72. So 72 divided by 6 is going to be 12. And the double negatives, whenever we see double negatives, we need to be thinking positive. Same signs. So down below, we have groups. We have negative 3 and negative 3. Negative 3, negative 3. And then there's 1 and 2 groups of them. So our expression we could write is 2 times negative 3. And we check it, it does equal negative 6. And if we modeled it out, negative 2 times 3. So the group is negative 2. So we're looking for negative 2, two negatives grouped together. This one is negative 3 grouped together, and then there's 1, 2 groups of them. So 2 times negative 3 is not the same as 3 times negative 2. It's the same result. Both of them are equal to negative 6. It's definitely not positive, and this one is backwards for the groupings. So negative 2, and then we have 1, 2, 3 groups. So 3 times negative 2 does equal our groupings up above. So 12 times 3, do our multiples of 12. 12, 24, 36. So negative 36, there's only one negative, so our product is negative. And then 80 divided by 5. So 10 times 5 is 50. 11 times 5, we're going to be a little bit over. So let's divide it out. So 5 divides into 8 one time. 1 times 5. Going through our division process. And bring your remainder down. And then 5 divides into 30 6 times. Now, we had this on one of our assignments, and I saw enough students getting it wrong that we're going to review it, make sure that we understand the answers. I had students picking H and J. So double negatives, when you have double negatives, we're thinking positive. So this answer, whatever it is going to be positive. And right now we're looking for negatives. Our model shows negatives. So we should be crossing this out right away. Double negatives, negative divided by negative, is going to be positive. So if we're looking at these two, we could actually cross those out right away because they don't even make sense for this model. So now we need to look and see what is our grouping. Do we have 8 divided into 2 groups, which would be -4? Or do we have -2 multiplied into 4 groups? -2, -2, -2, -2, and we have 4 groups. So the correct answer should have been -2 times 4, and that does equal -8. Okay, and just checking our answers there as we move along. And the last one for the graphing, for the review, just make sure we don't forget our graphing concepts. So the ordered pair for point C. So now remember, X is going to go first. You got positive or negative X, and then you got positive or negative Y. So if we take a look at our graph here, we go to point Z. So here's point C. And then we go left, -5, and that is our X. And then we go down, -4, and that is our Y. So you guys can label this. You could do it on a test. Just follow the number line starting from the origin. Okay, there we go. So from the origin, we go -5, and Y is going to be -4. So the X coordinate is this point right here, just by itself. So the X coordinate just by itself, this is ordered pair up above. Ordered pair is going to have 2 points, -5 and -4 together. It's a pair. But if it's just asking for the coordinate, it's asking for just 1 point. And then the X is -5 and the Y is -4. So we're going to plot a point W at positive X. So we got X and then Y. So we're going to go 5 to the right, and then we're going to go -3. Starting at the origin, we're going to go 5 to the right, and then it says -3. -3. So our point W is going to be located over here. 5 to the right, we're going on X, and then on Y, we're going down. So we labeled that, check. The ordered pair for the point inside the circle. So we look inside the circle, we have our X value, and then we have our Y value. So X going to the circle, X is going to be -3, and Y is going to be 2. And go ahead and label your quadrants. And remember, the quadrants go in a C shape around, starting in quadrant 1, and then going around to quadrant 4. So the quadrant, the circle is the quadrant. What quadrant is the circle located in? So the circle is located in quadrant 2. Okay, so make sure to go back through the video. If you need some help with any particular one, subtracting integers is the one that we're having the most issues with. So focus on subtracting. Make sure that you add the opposite of the second integer.